This incredible footage shows what is arguably one of the most dangerous motorways I have ever seen. Cars are travelling along a 7-lane motorway in one direction when all of a sudden a freight train pulls out in front of them with no warning. Now at first the footage looks fake and looks like the train has been edited in, as you do not see any boom gates or warning signs, and most importantly, train tracks. But yet, as the video progresses, the cars are reacting to the train by slowing down and stopping. Even though the video starts off looking fake, you quickly come to the decision.
I say it's fake. Just like the 2020 election. Just like most elections, in all honesty. But specifically that one. Alright, what the hell was I doing? Oh, I just learned some things. None of which is very useful. So what do I get at 56 and 58?
What can I do for you?
Garbage. Okay, I guess. That's nice. And that's 58. What about 56? Garbage. The hell's that horn? Oh, it's because it's noon. Anyway. That would be nice to have, actually. So I got that to look forward to. But I'm not 54 yet, or 55 yet, so I need to go back to the Plague Lands.
Greetings.
Okay, yeah, we can do that, but not right now. Alright, where do I need to go here? Probably Lights Hope then. Alt tab, by the way. No, this is a straight flight. I don't actually think I've watched this full flight path all the way through. I want to know what Chris Stuckman thinks about the Warcraft movie.
Warcraft is directed by Duncan Jones, who made two really good films, Moon and Source Code, two films I really enjoyed, so I was thus
It's the only
excited
movie
to
reviewer
see
I respect.
what he could bring to this world. And of course, as you probably know, it's based off one of the most successful video games of all time, World of Warcraft. It's pretty much impossible to be a human being that hasn't heard of World of Warcraft. Now, I've never personally gotten into the game, so I'm not looking for fan service. I'm not looking for things that are going to remind me of my time playing this game. I'm wondering, is this a good film? Does it work on the big screen? In this film, you have orcs and you have humans, and they are at battle. A portal separates their world, and sometimes the horde of orcs comes through that portal to steal away humans because the orc leader has the ability to suck the energy out of anything living, and he wants to do that to humans as well as some of his own people because their land is being destroyed. So a few orcs are starting to feel rebellious against their leader, and those orcs team up with the humans to hopefully go against this guy and take him down. This movie is being lambasted by critics. Usually I try not to look too deeply into reviews before I see a movie because I don't want anything to affect my judgment. But the reviews from professional critics are so harsh that it's almost impossible to drown out that noise, plus it opened in a lot of other places already. I personally don't feel this movie is as bad as critics are saying. There is definitely some entertainment value. I know the audience I saw it with did a lot of clapping and cheering, and they were having fun with a lot of the action set pieces, and one of the strongest things in this film is Duncan Jones as a director. The movie definitely has some problems, and I'll get into those in a minute, but Duncan Jones did bring a unique perspective to this video game turned into a movie. From the way he shot the opening sequence alone, I could tell there was going to be some really cool directorial flair throughout this film, and he shot a lot of really great battle sequences, and for the most part, the CGI incorporated with the humans does work fairly well. There are a few shots where the CGI was very noticeable, and one in particular where it almost looked like a fan film, where Ben Foster's character, who's playing this wizard called the Guardian, it's an overhead shot, he's summoning his power, and then there's this artificial shake that they inserted into it. It looked really bad. But for the most part, the motion capture, especially from Toby Kebbell and his character, is really good. A+ material motion capture work, and Toby Kebbell plays an orc who's at a crossroads in his life. He's the one who's feeling rebellious against his leader, and by far that was the most interesting character in the movie for me. He had something about him that I was invested in. I was actually more invested in him than any of the human characters. Which brings me to my biggest
Never seen
problem
this
with
before.
movie, the human characters. I didn't give a shit about any of them, really. The main protagonist is the cool action guy who really doesn't have much going on. I relate him to Aaron Taylor Johnson in the newest Godzilla movie. He's a cool guy, he's good at his job, he has somebody in his life that he's related to that he can kind of care for, but there really wasn't that much on the page for his character. He's just the really cool guy who jumps off tall buildings and, you know, kills people really good. There's also a younger wizard in the movie who's sort of in training who gets a lot of screen time, and I really did not care much for his character either. Paula Patton in this film plays a half-breed, and you get some sympathy for her because she is also at a crossroads in her life, similar to the other orc who's feeling rebellious, but her performance was very mugging at the camera. I like her a lot. She's a very beautiful woman, and I do think she's talented, but in this film, I felt that she was over the top in almost every scene she was in. My biggest issue with the human characters was Ben Foster as the Guardian. He plays this wizard who, for me, was just incredibly over the top and almost laughable from time to time, and towards the end of the film especially. It was a lot of for me, his character really didn't work. The human characters in this film and the story that they tried to create around them, for me, was very weak. I did really enjoy the battle sequences, and I thought Duncan Jones had a really nice visual touch to this movie, and some of the motion capture work was excellent. And when you judge it on the basis of video game movies in general, it is definitely above the fold, and I do think it's getting trashed way harsher than it deserves to be. The movie does try to go in a lot of different directions, and there are scenes that feel totally out of left field, like a random cameo scene from a celebrity that just feels like, why is that even there? There are a lot of scenes like that, unfortunately. But on the battlefield, whenever...
Well, you know what? Since I'm not going to remember this...
And Duncan Jones did interject some energy into it. It's just that I don't know if I really care to really experience this movie again, ever. Toby Kebbell, for me, gave the best performance in the whole movie. His character was by far the most interesting, but most of the other characters just didn't have that much behind them, and that was unfortunate. The movie is entertaining, though, and I think World of Warcraft fans will probably have a fun time watching it. It's big, it's loud, there's a lot of fun action sequences, but the story and most of the characters was disappointing. I'm going to give Warcraft a C+. I personally don't feel it's a disaster like most critics are saying. There are some good things in this movie, but it was a little disappointing overall.
That's it.
So stay tuned for this weekend, because now that I finally assembled my new background, I filmed my Captain America Hilariosity, and that's going to be going up this weekend. I've also filmed 3 new retro rewinds that are in the can and ready to be released as soon as I get them uploaded. You guys are the best. Look forward to those. Thank you so much as always for watching.
Man, Chris Stuckman used to sound like such a queer. Maybe it's his microphone. And I know for a fact he's not gay. Not with the kind of movies he likes. No, sir. He's an alpha male, actually.
Hey guys, what's up? Mad Season here, back with another episode of my memory series where I go over my personal story of playing everyone's favorite MMO back in the day.
Feel kind of bad for bringing everybody for this little thing.
This is part 4 in the series, and in the last one we left off with a cliffhanger. So far, we've covered my early steps, some of the alts I dabbled in, and how I eventually settled on the Paladin. Leveling a good portion as one-handed holy DPS, and then later Retribution. I joined the guild, and I made some friends who I still play with today. But after a short absence, I came back to an empty guild. What happened? Well, they joined a raiding guild. Our guild was very tight-knit at this point, and at most we had maybe 10-ish or 15-ish people max, so definitely not enough for raiding. But when I logged in, I either got a whisper or a mail from one of my friends telling me the situation. They had their dungeon sets, did all of the dungeons, and they were ready for the next step, which was raiding. They all joined this big guild named Archaic, and when I say big, we're talking like 150 plus members, which just blew my mind back then. They were making a big push to raid, and I think they were taking in a bunch of smaller guilds, including ours, and apparently I missed some drama. As sort of an application process, Archaic took new members along on the Upper Blackrock Spire instance as sort of a trial run to make sure that we know what we're doing. Remember, this was back when UBRS was technically a raid.
Oh, I see.
15 members. So, while I was gone, they took my friends Zarg, Maver, and Liquid, and our guildmaster Lon on one of these runs.
I never knew those existed.
Last one, but He was one of our healers.
Okay.
The way we ran dungeons back then as our original guild was very methodical since we died so much. So we'd pull as little as possible, wait for full mana for each pull, and things of that nature. But Archaic did things a little different. They ran this place several times at this point, and they sped through it pretty quickly in comparison, and did things like pull more than one group, pull when the healer
6,
is at about half
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
so on. Apparently, this didn't sit too well with Lon, and there was some sort of clash of powers and a big argument, and he ended up actually getting really mad, and he quit. The rest of the crew kind of adapted and just rolled with it, but Lon refused to join, so I came back to sort of a mess, and a decision to join 3 of my friends, or stay in a now empty guild with my guildmaster. Ultimately, I joined Archaic because I now had more friends there, and honestly, I just wanted to try raiding.
I might just do
It sounded
alt.
fun, and that's where you got the purples, which, as I've mentioned in other videos, were a big deal back then. Especially early on when everyone was coming from dungeons.
I changed my
All had just blues and such.
slot over here so much that
Those were huge and were sort of a status symbol back then.
I might as well not even bother with
Whoa,
this.
This guy has no life, this guy knows his stuff. So, I messaged my friends, said I'll join up, and initially, they weren't going to let me in. The original deal was to take all of us, or none of us, since we were a team. Well, excluding Lon, I guess, since he left, but that was of his own will. So my posse said that if Show doesn't join, we don't join, and they buckled and let the best paladin in the game join the guild. Honestly, this was probably because both Maver and Liquid were healers, and Zarg was tanking, so we had a lot of leverage since those roles were always much harder to come by. Especially tanks in vanilla, since
Let's try this.
needed like 8 of them. So, I had finally joined a raiding guild, but the catch was they wanted me as heals. At this point, if you recall, I was Retribution spec, and also broke, so I couldn't...
I didn't even save it.
Holy, and a good portion of my gear was of the bear, which was strength and stamina, so I wasn't in the best state for healing, but I wanted to raid pretty badly, so when they asked if I could heal, I was like, yeah, sure.
See, I'm not going to use the page one now.
And back then, they give you a lot of wiggle room, and you could have people who didn't really know what they were doing, and you were still able to kill
I think I'm just going to use shift instead of alt. It's more
I scheduled
comfortable.
my first raid, though, which was the Molten Core. This was one of 2 choices at the time, with the other being Onyxia's Lair, as you may know, but we went with the Molten Core because the attunement was way more simple. You just had to run through the Blackrock Depths instance real quick and grab a stone, whereas Onyxia was a huge quest chain with that escort for the Alliance, so our first goal was the Molten Core, and when we weren't raiding, we were tasked with completing the Onyxia attunement. So, we all gathered in the Blackrock Mountain, ready for our first raid. I stayed in the back, trying to be as nondescript as possible with my DPS gear and build as a healer. I'd throw out like 4 heals, then run out of mana, and buffing since I was a paladin. If there's one thing I remember from my first raid, it was buffing. Paladins originally had these 5-minute buffs called blessings, and at first, you could only apply them to one person at a time, so with 40 people, you were just constantly trying to keep everyone buffed, and it was rough. We all had our little assignments, and we were just constantly cycling between 40 people with these buffs.
Look at me, I'm not a clicker anymore. I'm graduated.
With an add-on called Whispercast, which let players whisper to Paladin for a certain buff, and then, with a click of a button, the Paladin would target the player and buff them. So, this was a lifesaver, to say the least. And then later on, we would of course get the Greater Blessings, which buffed multiple people at once. I believe it was split across each class, so you did still have to cast it like 9 times, but it also lasted for 15 minutes, which was definitely an improvement. Now, you may say that it's inefficient to have it class-based, What if you have restoration druids and DPS feral druids?
What about this
Well, the
one?
answer to that is back then, there were very few, if any, DPS druids in the raiding scene, simply due to the balance. And this was true with most of the other classes. 90% of the raiding paladins were holy, the priests holy, the mages frost, I think, at least in the molten core due to the fire resistance that every mob had. So, these buffs being locked to classes was actually pretty efficient at the time, and it was just another quirk with vanilla raiding, as I've mentioned in other videos. So even just starting the raid was a hassle, and it seemed like it would take an hour to buff everyone up so we could start pulling. Mages could make like 4 waters at a time, so they spent half their time as vending machine duty. Warlocks couldn't use their dots because there were a limited amount of debuff slots. Only one druid and priest could have heals over time on the tank because they didn't stack. It was vanilla raiding in its purest form. But this was it. My first raid. Despite how cumbersome it seems now,
I pretty much just do like what I do in StarCraft and put my most used keys
several hours it seemed, and we did actually get a boss
farther
kill.
to the left so they're easier to hit.
It wasn't a first boss in the raid since you could go multiple directions, but in general, people went for Luciferon first. As did we, and after many attempts, we did manage to beat him.
You son of a
Using the word
bitch.
"we" here lightly because I was pretty useless. We took a screenshot, and we divvied out
Oh
the
shit,
rewards.
wrong one.
Our first set of purples. Now, anyone who's played vanilla before knows that there wasn't any shortage of drama over late. This was our first raid, so we didn't have the DKP system set up, so I'm pretty sure we just rolled for the drops. I do remember the warrior gloves dropped because there was a big argument over them about who was allowed to roll on them. They were of course for tanking, but the DPS warriors were rolling as well, so our shared victory was short-lived and everyone got all angry, and the guy who won the gloves ended up being kicked anyways, I think. That's one thing I'll say is, our officers didn't take crap from anyone. If someone was causing drama about something, they'd boot him with the quickness and laugh about it later. They simply did not give a crap, which was actually a good thing because they didn't take it so seriously. I was only an archaic in vanilla, so I can't say for sure, but I think we were one of the only competitive alliance guilds who didn't take things too seriously like some others back then, which made it way more fun in my opinion. I'm surprised I didn't get booted because I was a stinker back then. I remember I did get in trouble during the Christmas holiday. I'm pretty sure it's nerfed now, but back then you could buy these snowballs from vendors, and these would actually knock down people in your party. Not your raid, but if you were in the same party in the raid, it would work. At this point, I was friends with one of the officers, so I had him move me wherever I wanted to, and during the trash pulls and raiding, I would sit in the back until a caster is about to finish their spell, and then knock them down with a snowball. Okay, here's a good one for you. I'm telling you, I was a stinker back then, but there's also this jump to the molten core that was a shortcut. Instead of going all the way around and through that middle platform, you can instead just jump down to a little ledge down here, and then you heal up, and then jump down once more to this ramp right next to the lava. So there's a tip for you, for those of you out there who are gonna play Classic. But one time, I got one of the officers good. He was getting ready to make this jump, and I caught him. Pow! I caught him with a snowball, and he missed the ledge and fell to his death. He was screaming on TeamSpeak, "Who did that? Who did that? You're paying my repair bill." And I quickly sauntered on out of there and got out of Dodge before I could be found out. Like I said, I was a stinker back then. Well, I still am today, but not as much as back then. We were still serious when we needed to be, but it wasn't like a prison camp where you must absolutely follow certain guidelines, or you weren't allowed to talk in TeamSpeak or whatever. It really was a
I'm assuming the like's over here.
Definitely not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. There's some crazy shit going on in that TeamSpeak, which, if I were to go into detail, I'd probably get banned from YouTube, so I'll just get back on track here. So, our first raid boss was Lucifron. I don't remember the drops really, aside from the mic gloves, since there's some drama with them. A lucky few got purples, and we called it a raid. One boss down, 9 more to go. From here, we started to get a bit more structured and started using the dreaded
I don't see a lake.
system where you got points for participating in boss kills.
Yeah, there isn't a lake over here.
We also set up rules for who can bid on what to avoid as much drama as possible, and we were officially a raiding guild. We got a website, set up times for raids, the whole 9 yards pretty much. I think we'd raid 5 nights a week for 4-ish hours, which was pretty hardcore.
I'm gonna look this up.
That was a big...
Because there's no lake northwest
A
of
lot of us were still in school. and
Orange
whatnot,
Crossing.
So we had the time to spare. I want to say that my first raid purple were the Lawbringer bracers. I know it was our tier 1 set, Lawbringer, and I want to say bracers because I remember running around naked in Ironforge with just my bracers on to show everyone how cool I was. I was pretty proud of myself. So, the early stages of raiding. We're progressing through the Molten Core, and I made a lot more friends. We also had our fair share of drama. Some of it was hilarious, and some of it just made you roll your eyes and facepalm. My guild was very entertaining for the most part, and we had a lot of fun with it, I thought. In the next one, I'll go over more raiding, more shenanigans, and maybe even wrap up the vanilla portion of the series. I hope you're enjoying it so far. Like it if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Farewell for now, mortals. We hope you enjoyed today's video.
Playing World of Warcraft way back in the day. We've made some steady progress in this series, but it's been a bit since the last one, so let me give you a quick refresher. On the last episode of Mad Season Ball Z, we covered the early raiding experience, and we just started the multi.
villains. Okay.
I'm playing my Holy Paladin as Retribution spec with strength gear. No, that wasn't what you were supposed to do, but I was able to buff at least, which was good enough at the time. We've killed our first boss, which was Lucifron. We went over all the drama that went with being in a raiding guild back then, with the dreaded DKP system and whatnot. Talked about some of my shenanigans, how I was a bit of a troublemaker.
Oh.
My first purple, which were the Lawbringer bracers. So, continuing.
There's a little itty bitty lake.
It made slow, but
Not even a lake. It's like a pond, like right
eventually,
there.
The endless buffing did wear on me and my paladin friend Liquid. I don't know. I guess the complex and intricate gameplay was getting a little too stimulating.
And I guess
so
it's technically
with the
northwest.
Molten Core, we were leveling alts. At this point, you can probably tell that I had a taste for damage and DPS. Not really healing or tanking, but I was stuck healing and buffing since no one really wanted a Retribution Paladin for raiding back then. So, I went through the class list, looking for a pure DPS class, a new character, and a new adventure. I wanted a class that was incapable of healing or tanking period, and paying close attention to the raiding scene, I picked a rogue which had the highest damage, at least for our guild. This time I switched it up, and I went human, which actually turned out to be a pretty good choice with how the weapon skills worked, since they had a bonus with them. Though I mainly picked them because I wanted something other than dwarf, and to start seeing the other races' questing areas. My buddy Liquid actually made the same thing, a human rogue, and whenever we weren't raiding, we were leveling. This time was much faster, of course, because we had a good idea of what zones to go to, what dungeons to do. No longer was I spamming dungeons because I didn't know where any of the quests were. I was serious this time and did all of the good quests, skipped the ones that weren't worth it, like the escort quests and whatnot, and we made it to 60 pretty quickly compared to my paladin. Rogues were also pretty quick to level since they did so much damage, so that definitely helped too. So we hit 60, and we told our officers that we wanted to switch. I think we were pretty lucky because they just happened to be looking for more rogues at this point. They probably looked at me and said, well, he can't be any worse than his Paladin, so give him a shot. And this was where I really shined, I think. Now, I don't want to say that I was ever really good at the game. I've always been pretty average, but I'd say back then, just because everyone sucked, I thought I did pretty well in comparison. All of the rogues in the guild did pretty well actually, and we'd lend out advice to other raiding guilds on how to gear up and do damage and whatnot, because this was still before anything like icy veins, I want to say. Players more often than not had to figure out things for themselves, and we were pretty good.
That's weird.
I want to do a quick name drop.
He does the attack animation, but he's not actually attacking.
I want to do it more for my friends out there if they're watching this. Now, our best rogue was probably our Grand Marshal in Haber. As some of you know, I'm sure, the rank 14 grind was pretty insane back then. It required 24/7 play pretty much since you were competing against other people on your server, but as a reward, you were able to buy some pretty insane gear. So he was probably the best because he had the Grand Marshal swords, and he also knew the class very well. He did have to throw out his computer chair though after he hit rank 14, because he started like melding into it with the caked up grease and sweat and whatnot. It was pretty gross. I had another friend named Stoofers, and I'd say he was probably second in place. He was human as well, so he did a lot of damage with their plus weapon skill ratio. And third place probably went to me. Like I said, at this point, I was a madman, and I was playing a lot, studying up on my class, practicing my rotation and whatnot, and I did pretty good, I think. After that was probably our raid leader, who was named Loraith. After that, though, is anyone's guess. I don't really pay attention to anyone under number 4 since my damage meter didn't go down that far. But we also had one of our officers, Los, the guy hit with the snowball, and he was alright. He definitely tried, which deserved merit. The rogues in our guild were very tight-knit though, and we watched each other's back and worked together in gearing each other up. And for the most part, we still play to this day. So, I'm now a rogue, and this pretty much became my main character for the rest of vanilla, and even for a few expansions. I loved their high damage, the ability to stealth, pickpocket, open lockboxes, you know, all that roguey stuff. And to top it all off, they couldn't heal or tank, so I was good to go. I was combat spec specifically for PvE, since that did the most damage back then, I think. It held its own in PvP too, but every once in a while, if I'd take a break from raiding, I'd switch on over to assassination spec and spend some time in...
Oh, I don't want to be on Discord when I'm streaming here, because my computer sometimes doesn't like it.
Mages or warlocks in like 5 seconds with some lucky crits. Just take a look at some of the old school rogue PvP videos, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I didn't get as far as my friend. I stopped at Lieutenant Commander, which was rank 10. That was still a pretty good time investment, but it really started to pick up after that, and you'd pretty much have to play 7 to get rank 14, which is
Bish.
I liked the game, but I didn't like it that much.
Oops.
Rank 10 completed the blue set, which was enough for me.
Oops. I'm pushing buttons.
I actually did make a few PvP videos back in the day, but as far as I can tell, those are gone forever since the site I uploaded them to is gone, and my old computer is long gone. Those were the first videos I made though, and I'm sure they were garbage. Not much has changed, huh? But when I was raiding, I was back to the combat spec. We pushed through the Molten Core, and really started to work through those bosses up until a point where we had everything but Ragnaros on farm. And that's because he needed a lot of fire resistance, if you didn't know, and we progressed fast enough to where that kind of snuck up on us. Remember, there were 40 people at this point, and it's classic. Having these 40 people get 200 something fire resistance was easier said than done, and it took at least a month. It took high level and low
Mithril?
level
Yes.
dungeons to find all of the right pieces, lots of globetrotting, and time. I remember we used to farm a piece off of this guy in the Blackrock Depths. We would get 5 rogues together in a group and just stealth through the whole place, kill them, and reset over and over. So, the first resist fight here, and my guild in particular, wouldn't even let you in until he had at least 200 something.
Come on.
The raiding scene was very different back then.
Stick
If I had to
y'all
sum
on.
it up, it was very specific. Nowadays, for most content, when you're making a guild,
I got
typically
hotkeys now.
2 tanks, maybe 3 or 4
Or
healers,
keybinds, as they call them.
DPS, and that's it. But back then, you specifically wanted warrior tanks, a lot of rogue DPS, at least a couple of hunters for tranquilizing shot to dispel enrages, resist gear, a few warlocks for banish, or else you couldn't do fights like Gar, mages for water basically, a few paladins for buffing. If you didn't pay careful attention when you were setting up these raids, you would have no chance on some of these fights. It's one of the bigger arguments against current versus vanilla or Burning Crusade raiding, I think. Some people love it, and some people hate it. Hopefully soon, everyone will be happy, and we'll get some news about those classic servers. So, we got all of our resistances squared away, and it was time for the final boss of the Molten Core and the Lord of the Fire Realm, Ragnaros. I think in the last video, I mentioned that at the end of the day, the mechanics in the Molten Core were pretty simple. A little fun fact is that this place was actually made in 1 week. The zone, the bosses, the loot, all put together in just 7 days right before release, and they almost scrapped it since they almost ran out of time. While they did an amazing job, you can kind of see some side effects of this. You had the Mind Control Salamander, the Rain of Fire Salamander, the Arcane Explosion Salamander, and so on. Lots of copies, and with it being the first big raid, it wasn't too hard to figure out what to do, and the only challenge was that everyone was new at the time. So, I want to say that Ragnaros was the first complex boss fight in the game, not counting Elixia. He actually had phases, which was unique at the time. He had the phase where he was above ground, he had to have a tank in melee range or else he'd nuke the raid, and he'd also periodically AoE the melee, and you'd have to time your DPS and jump out at the right time or else you'd get sent flying up in the air and take a lot of damage. Melee in and melee out is a phrase that's forever burned into my memory. You would also have constant area fire damage, which was why everyone needed that resist, not just the tanks, and periodically he'd submerge into the lava and summon some mana draining adds that the tanks would scramble to pick up aggro on. The ranged would be all over the place trying to avoid them. Aggro was tougher to get in general back then, so everyone would be running everywhere. It was pretty chaotic. As a result, there were lots of deaths, of course. Again, due to everyone being new, and this was also before YouTube, so we couldn't simply look up a video on how exactly the fight worked. It took us a month probably of real attempts to take him out, and I remember our first kill, we had a hunter named Calandros as the only one alive out of the 40 people, and he miraculously killed them with one final shot.
Oh, I didn't mean to do that, but okay.
Exploded in a huge nerdgasm. It was like the climax of a movie, and he has no problem retelling this story even today. Kind of like those old war vets going back in my day, but just a bit more nerdy. But with that, we had conquered the Molten Core, in the most epic fashion possible at that. This was quite the proud moment for me. I started at level 1 with no idea what I was doing, bounced around from class to class, and somehow made it to level 60, with the majority of it as a holy DPS paladin. I slowly but surely conquered all of the dungeons the game had to offer, And here I was in a 40-man guild with our first clear of the Molten Core. I believe we were one of the first 5 alliance guilds to take them out, which was impressive at the time because we started raiding late. Remember, I only started playing in March of 2005, and it took me a couple of months to
Motherfucker.
level, so we only would have started at around May of 2005 at the
Shamans will
earliest,
kill
I
me.
think.
No question.
Plenty of guilds were raiding before us, but we beat a lot of them out because we had good leadership and coordination. And also, it was Khadgar on the US, which was one of the slowest progression servers, so that definitely helped. Alright, that's it for this one, I guess. I've officially made the switch to Rogue. We
Fuck 'em
finally
up.
cleared through all of the Molten Core pretty quickly at that. Now, I thought I was going to wrap up Vanilla in this episode, but we still got a lot more to cover. We have the Onyxia's Lair, the Blackwing Lair, AQ40, Naxxramas, and a bunch of stories to go along with those, so we probably got a few more videos in the vanilla portion of this series. So, in the next one, we'll probably cover some Onyxia stuff, some Blackwing Lair, and who knows what else. I hope you found the video interesting or entertaining. Like it if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
I'm gonna get attacked while I'm alt-tabbed. I already know it.
We hope you enjoyed today's video.
Yep. I knew it. Hitting the wrong buttons over here. Is he gonna like start the video or what? Is that horde attacking? Yep, motherfucker. I deserve it. Let me get this kill though. Oh, okay. I knew he'd be back.
Hey
No
guys,
question.
what's up? Mad Season here, back with another video in my memory series for you, where I share my personal story of playing World of Warcraft way back in the day. It's been a couple of months since the last one. This is part 6, and in the last one, I talked about my times in the Molten Core, and we talked
Yep,
about
this is the lake.
a bit as well.
Or pond or
Also,
whatever.
I officially made the switch from Paladin to Rogue because I got tired of buffing, and we also just killed Ragnaros for the first time by the skin of our teeth. It took a while, but we got there. Before we move on to the Blackwing Lair though, we should talk about Onyxia's Lair, which was the other launch raid. Onyxia was just a single boss raid, as you know, still definitely tough at the time, but a good opportunity to pick up some quick loot if we could get her on farm, which would definitely help with the Molten Core. We killed her way before Ragnaros, as you would imagine, but it still took us quite a while because of the lengthy attunement chain. All the while we were clearing through the Molten Core, we were tasked with completing this attunement. The chain itself was pretty ridiculous. I actually have a whole video about it. It was different for each side, but for the Alliance, it involved a lot of globetrotting, and to sum it up, you basically just... Actually, you know what? I'm not glossing through this chain. I had to go through it, so you do too. You had to pick up a quest in the Burning Steppes, kill some Dragonkin, deliver a letter to Lakeshire, deliver a letter to Stormwind, take another letter to Lakeshire, return to the Burning Steppes, travel across the zone to another NPC to try to find the location of a dude named Marshall Windsor, go to the Blackrock Depths, kill the boss that drives a Psyche, find the right cell, talk to Windsor, return to the Burning Steppes, return to the Blackrock Depths, kill trash until you find a note, take the note to Windsor, and from here, you had to kill some bosses within the dungeon. But to reach them...
That's what I was missing.
You guessed it, a key. Where did you get this key? Well, you had to die and find a ghost outside of the dungeon, accept his quest, return to the Blackrock Depths, go through the arena event, make your way to the Hall of Crafting, loot a hammer, put the hammer in a statue, also within the dungeon, get the key, kill those 2 bosses, return to Windsor, break him out of jail, return to Stormwind, wreck Prestor's craft, cross the Great Sea to Winter Spring and Kalendor, find an NPC there named Hala on top of a mountain, and from here you need to go to the upper Blackrock Spire and kill the final boss there, General Dracasath, and loot his blood. This place required a key though, and this also had its own quest chain entirely. You had to pick up the unadorned Seal of Ascension from the trash in the lower Blackrock Spire, find a hidden NPC within the dungeon on a ledge at the end of a hidden pathway, obviously, collect 3 gems, which dropped from 3 different bosses in the raid. Only one person could loot each gem, and they didn't always drop. Travel across the world once more to the Dustwallow Marsh Zone, find an elite drake named Ember Strife, mind control him, and use his breath to forge a ring called the Seal of Ascension, zone into the upper Blackrock Spire and kill Dracasath, loot his blood, return to Hala in Winter Spring, and she gives you the Drakefire Amulet, and finally you can zone into Onyxia's lair. Well, getting 40 people to do this was no easy feat, and my guild would have us work on this whenever we weren't raiding the Molten Core. And it may not sound like it, but I actually quite enjoyed the chain as a whole. It was the first really epic one I did, I want to say, and it's one of the things that I wish they'd bring back in the current game. I eventually worked through this chain though, and would end up doing jailbreak several times for other guild members to help them out and try to get everyone ready for Onyxia.
What's the
So, quite the chain.
loot all button?
The most challenging part was getting our entire guild to do it, like I said, because Wowhead and weren't things yet. The best we had was what we had in game, word of mouth, and Thoughtbot. When they release classic servers, someone should recreate the old Thoughtbot website just for the full package. I think we killed Onyxia pretty quickly. She wasn't too tough as far as I recall, unless you pull whelps, that is. The fight itself was pretty impressive at the time compared to the Molten Core. Having 3 different phases back then was a rarity, so it was pretty cool.
Oh, I remember. I didn't like that because I didn't even really know what I was looting. Never mind.
Even to this day, no one fully knows exactly how.
That's another reason I don't like AoE loot.
Though, is that she targets invisible rabbits spread throughout the raid to determine where it goes. A cool developer trick that they shared a while ago. But those were the 2 big raids conquered. Like I mentioned in the last part, I did do a bit of PvP.
Pretty sure there's only one way out of here.
First, before Battlegrounds were added, I just stuck with the famous Terran Mill versus South Shore battles. Back then, the only way you could PvP was to find people out in the world, and the biggest hotspot for this was in the Hillsbred foothills in Terran Mill and South Shore. This was one of the first areas where the Alliance and Horde met up, and they had 2 hubs right across from each other, so I guess it just naturally became the go-to spot for PvP action. It was also before the honor system was in-game, and there really wasn't any actual benefit to PvPing other than just the fun of it. So this hub was the place to be, and even on my PvE server, there was always a battle raging on. It was even recreated on the 10th anniversary in a battleground where you could get a special title. So, at first, this is where I got my PvP fix on my Paladin. I'd run into a ball of 50 Horde, Bubble, and hearth back to South Shore just a minute away, and rejoin the fight. I also remember when Battlegrounds were first added. It was patch 1.5, and at first, to queue up, you had to go to the actual instance portal. There weren't any Battle Masters or anything like that yet, and initially, we only had the Altric Valley,
Of course.
Mountains, and the Warsong Gulch in Ashenville for the Alliance, and the Barrens for the Horde, I think. So, it was awesome to finally get some structured PvP where there's an actual scenario that you could win. The first one I queued for was the Altric Valley.
Of course.
And something that sucked with my server was that the Alliance vastly outnumbered the Horde, so the queue times were...
Oh, that's 6 seconds now, isn't it?
I remember waiting at this portal with many others for hours, sort of like a crowded amusement park, except without the vomit. And when it was finally my turn, I zoned in, looked around, and zoned right through the portal next to me, not knowing that it was the exit. I was pretty pissed.
That actually came in handy. How about that?
Same game though, because back then, the Electric Valley was ridiculous. There were a bunch more NPCs in general, including raid bosses that both sides could spawn, and it was very hard to push through, or get pushed through. Fights were stalled at certain graveyards, and you'd have games that
he was determined. Oh goodness.
That was only added in the Wrath of the Lich King, and there was an exploit for both sides where the flag carrier could glitch through
That sucks.
above the flag cap, so you'd have games that would go on for hours or even days in there. As for the Arathi Basin, it wasn't added until a few months later in patch 1.7. This was the only one that was guaranteed to be winnable within a half hour or so. The only tough part was, again, for my server, we had way too many alliance and too few horde, so it could take hours to get into a match. This was before cross-realm anything, so while the community was still intact, this was one of the downsides. They only added that in the final vanilla patch, which was 1.12, which is what we're going to be getting in the official classic servers. So I did do quite a bit of PvP when I wasn't raiding. I've always loved it in World of Warcraft, and I only really stopped after the Cataclysm expansion. But in patch 1.6, we finally got the next raid, which was the Blackwing Lair. Nefarian, whom you saw in the Upper Blackrock Spire raid, got his own raid, and along with his Black Dragonflight, he seeks to destroy the world, so naturally, we gotta stop him. You needed to attune yourself to this raid as well before you could zone in. It was much more simple this time though, just requiring you to kill a guard outside of the Blackrock Spire, looting a quest starter, and then touching an orb behind the final boss, Dracasath. None of that globe-trotting stuff like with Onyxia. The raid itself held 8 bosses total, and it was the next step up. The Molten Core, as great as it was for the introduction of raiding into World of Warcraft, most of the fights were pretty simple. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but the only one with multiple phases I want to say was Ragnaros. The Blackwing Lair improved upon this with fights such as Razor Gore, which started with the gauntlet of egg destroying and ad killing and kiting, and ended with the battle with Razor Gore himself. Velistraz, where you had infinite resources, and it was a mad dash to finish him before you ran out of tanks. Lots of 1% wipes on this guy, as I remember. These two bosses were quite infamous at the time, and they destroyed many guilds. It was like jumping into the deep end. Going from the simpler fights from the Molten Core to the gauntlet known as Razor Gore and a huge gear check with Velistraz broke a lot of guilds, and many that were
That's really annoying.
through MC and Onyxia slowly faded away as they couldn't get used to this brick wall. And later on, of course, had Chromagus, which would have randomness like the elements that you had to deal with, and Nefarian, who speaks for himself. Honestly though, I don't remember much out of this place. A common question I get with this series is, how do you remember all of this stuff? Well, the answer is I don't. Remember, this is over the course of the weeks. At this point, I have maybe an hour or two worth of videos talking about all of this stuff. If I remembered everything, it would be a 1,000-part series, so all of what I've been telling you is a tiny fraction of what I remember with the game back then. I do also have some friends who played with me back then to reminisce with and bring up some old stuff that I forgot about, which is very helpful. But the Blackwing Lair is one of those places that you just don't remember too much of. Not really any interesting or funny stories that stand out to me. It was good, don't get me wrong, just not too memorable to me, I guess.
Knocked me
Maybe
all the way
because
over
it
here.
wasn't my first raid like the Molten Core. Your first time of anything is always going to be the most memorable, so that could be it, I guess. Although one thing I do remember though are the old tier 2 sets before the revamp. I remember I got my Bloodflame hood before they redid the model. It just looked like a red Shadowcraft mask. At the time, I also had level 20 blue bracers equipped, and some guy made fun of me for having those along with the tier 2 headpiece. I think we duked it out in whispers for a bit. Here are the other sets though. As you can see, they needed that revamp pretty badly. I also remember how you had to have the Onyxia skill cloak for the Nefarian fight. You crafted this from scales skinned from Onyxia, and he would do a breath when he goes into phase 2. And
I hate
he would
elementals.
if he didn't have it equipped. So pretty interesting that you needed to have that raid on farm and get the cloak for all 40 members before you could finish this one. I kind of liked it. So, the Blackwing Lair. A good raid, but that's about all I remember. The next one was of course on Kiraj. Now, I have a few memories with this place, I'll tell you what. So much so that I think I'd like to save it for its own individual part. So, we caught up a bit. I talked about the first 3
I would've killed them.
the Molten Core, Onyxia,
And I went through
we have
the fucking map,
pretty thorough
so
at this point. Really, all
that's
left
what I'm
in
doing
vanilla is
in response to that.
Naxxramas, and the wind down for the Burning Crusade, and the launch event for that. The end of vanilla. Thanks for watching, as always, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Of the September poll, and in the last episode, we talked mostly about the Onyxius lair and the Blackwing lair, and all the shenanigans that went on with that. We have just 2 more big raids for vanilla though, and that's of course AQ40 and Naxxramas. Before we get into those though, I wanted to talk about Zul'Gurub first, since I kind of forgot about that in the last episode, as some of you mentioned. And I don't know how, because I did spend a lot of time in there. This was when I was in the deepest with the game, I think. Our Tuesday raid nights would be Onyxia, Molten Core, and then most of the Blackwing lair, and then after that, we also had a ZG raid, where I wanted to go, so you're talking hours.
Alright, I really just want to kill this guy and get it over with before he does that.
It was quite new for me at the time. I did all of the 5-man dungeons, and of course the 40-man raids. So having this in between was pretty unique, I thought, and it was quite difficult during its release, as I remember. The Witch Doctor in particular was rough, and I have his voice lines permanently etched into my memory.
Welcome to the great show. Step right up to die.
These runs would often go into the early hours of the morning, just wiping to the same boss.
I don't even know how I ended up over here.
And it was all for like 2 pieces of gear per boss. That's the thing with vanilla loot, is that you had 20 or 40 people for these raids, and maybe like 3 items dropped, which, as you would imagine, created tons of drama since there were so little to go around.
I got a crit hill coming for you.
I remember we had a longtime Paladin in our guild throw a fit over a ring in here. He was a healer, and he wanted the ring to fit on it, and when they told him that healers can't miss, he got really angry, left the raid, G-quit, the whole 9 yards. He also thought that Pizza Hut was a local chain and was too fancy to deliver, but that's another story. So, I do miss a lot of things from vanilla, but the loot drama isn't one of them, and I much prefer the personal loot system that they have in the current game, where you don't have to roll or master loot stuff. Anyways, ZG. The first 20-man raid, I want to say, not counting the original Skolomance and Stratholm, I think. We did pretty good in it. I also want to say that we might have been the first Alliance guild on the server to clear through it all. Probably because we were the only ones willing to play for 12 hours a day, but hey, it was still an accomplishment. And pretty fun too, since
Not doing damage sucks.
from my previous guild that I mentioned.
Yeah, I literally just get knocked around. I get feared every 3 seconds.
At this point, we did
For
everything
1
together.
second.
All the dungeons, all the raids. So even though I kind of look back in awe and face palming that we played so much, it made for some good memories finally clearing through it in the wee hours of the morning. It's actually one of my favorite raids in vanilla for that reason, And
I did
after
kill the
that,
one
I
that
got
was
taken
closest to
over
this
by
though, so I might
Paladin
just be
man.
able to loot this and get the
But
hell out of
anyways,
here.
onto the main event, which was of course on Kiraj. To kick off this raid, we of course had the AQ40 opening event, which I've talked about 1,000 times already, so I won't go too in depth here. To sum it up, the entire server had to gather resources in the war effort to open the gates. Once both the Horde and Alliance contributed enough, the gates flew open and a huge event started where the inhabitants of AQ rose up, and it was only then that you could zone into the raids. There were hundreds, perhaps thousands of people outside of the gates, and the server crashed many times. I mentioned in my Scepter of the Shifting Sands videos that I started that huge quest chain, but I didn't make it very far. I think I got to the bug part grind and called it quits there. I think it was really the first time that they did a big event like this, something that would be repeated many times later on for other raids such as Next Ramus and even expansions. Very successful, I think, even with the technical problems. The raid was a whole other beast from what we've seen so far though, and it's where the game really started getting tough. It was the biggest yet in terms of size, not really confusing to navigate since you really only had one path through, aside from a few optional bosses, but it was just very long and time consuming. The worst part of wiping to this place was the run back. It was horrible. You died, you had to run in ghost form back to the entrance, and then go all the way from the beginning to whatever boss that you wiped to. There were no checkpoints, so it just got progressively worse the further that you got into it. And to make matters worse, the bosses of course got harder, so you'd be spending maybe 20% of the night in actual combat, and the rest was just going over strategies, buffing, and running back. And to top it all off, the trash in this place was insane. Not just the
Even if I was full health, I wouldn't be able to do this.
particularly the giants between who
Because they would just knock me in the other ones over and over.
there were like 7 patrolling the hallway, and it was common to wipe.
I like how that time I aggroed 2 of them instead of 1.
There were some nights where we just fight this trash for 2 hours because we didn't clear it fast enough due to wiping. So by the time we were fighting the last one, the first one would respawn. So even trash was a huge obstacle sometimes, combined with those runs back. Blizzard did try to help with this though, by making some unique mounts that only drop in the raid. These would have 100% speed no matter what, because remember, 100% speed training was really expensive, and not everyone had it, especially if you're spending all your gold on repair bills trying to clear through this place. They dropped in various colors, and some were more rare, but they all gave the same movement speed increase. Even still though, there was some drama to be had, and that's because one in particular was super rare, and that was the red one. The way my guild handled it was the officers would get priority on the red ones, which started a raging storm of angst. There are 3 sides to it. First is, the officers work hard to form the raids and handle everything, so they deserve to get them out first. And 2 is, it's unfair to have preferential treatment like that, so it should be divvied up between everyone. And you also have the hidden third side, which I was a part of, and that's who cares, it's just a different color. But regardless, sides A and B would clash about this and be all pissed off, while Group C just got the popcorn and laughed at the whole situation. There was a G quit over it, as I remember. We had a druid who was with us since the Molten Core, and he quit after a big argument, and he also took a friend or 2 with him, which caused even more drama. In fact, there's even an achievement for getting this red one today, and it's called Why? Because it's red. I'm not sure if I'm missing a pop culture reference here or something, but because of the way that my guild handled it, I always thought that this was referring to officers taking the red one, and all the drama that went along with it. Why? Well, because it's red, of course. That's one of the things I'm wondering if we'll see again with the classic servers. With the old loot system, will you see all of this drama return? Or since the game has been out for so long, do you think people will just be like, whatever? Remember, it's going to be 40 people going against each other.
I'm wondering if I should use Seal of Justice.
So, It'll be interesting. to
That
see
way I
if
can
they-
stun them, potentially.
Oh my god! What the fuck? Oh my god.
As for the actual bosses in the raid, like I said, very difficult. We were consistently in the top 3 guilds on our server at the time, and we never even managed to beat Cthulhu.
Oh, only had to pull one that time.
Basically, everything was hard, but the last 3 were the guild breakers for this raid. And that was Princess Huhuran, the Twin Emperors, and of course Cthulhu. Huhuran was difficult because it was this raid's resist fight. Every member, not just the tanks, needed to have
There we go.
resist for her, which took a while to farm. Some of it was crafted, some of it dropped from dungeons or other raids, and coordinating 40 people and making sure that they're farming as much as they can was no easy feat. I remember having to farm Razorhead Downs, I think, which was a level 40 dungeon for bracers, I'm pretty sure, because they had nature resist on them. And I remember it took me hours and days of farming to finally get a good pair, because they dropped with random stats too. I think I said screw it, and I settled for a stamina and intellect one, which isn't the best for a rogue, but whatever. At that point, I just wanted to get out of that place. So,
Same.
we were usually farming nature resist gear. Our alchemists would farm all day to make nature absorb potions, so each attempt we were just throwing gold down the drain. And we all hit like wet noodles, which you usually had to sacrifice your main stat for that resist. So, it was a very difficult fight in many aspects. It would be one thing if it was face roll once you got the gear, but even with the crazy resist, she was still incredibly tough, and a lot of guilds actually broke up once they reached her. And after her, you had the Twin Emperors, which was a whole other beast. These guys probably killed us more than any other boss in any raid during vanilla, and that's saying a lot. The way they worked was each one only took either physical or magic damage, and if they were close to each other, they spammed healed like crazy. They would also swap positions during the fight, and they also had a rage timer. So it was hugely dependent on the tanks.
What?
And since warriors were basically the only tanks back then, it was tricky to get aggro on the caster only one. They were designed to have a paladin or druid tank, I think, but most guilds just went with warriors spamming battle shout to get the aggro from buffing. So the casters had to be very careful with their aggro, but it was just such a difficult fight because everybody had to be perfect. One mistake would cause them to get too close or something and heal to full, and every time their health bar went up, you just watched like 3 minutes of work fade away, and you knew that you were hitting that enrage timer. And remember, this is the second to last boss. If you wipe, you spend 20 minutes running back and rebuffing. It wasn't like you could get another shot at it right away when you were fresh. So you started to enter this cycle of getting so pissed off and tired of running back over and over, trying to beat the trash respawns, that you lose your focus and you do something dumb that wipes the entire raid. Repeat this for 2 more months until eventually everybody gets the hang of it, or we just get the gear, and finally we take them down. To this day, this boss is my biggest accomplishment in this game, and it was so awesome to finally beat him. There was definitely a giant nerdgasm on the TeamSpeak on that first kill after wiping to them for so many months. But we did eventually kill him, and we moved on to Cthulhu. We never did kill him though, like I mentioned earlier. He was just a bit too tough for us. I think the main reason though was Nexramus came out shortly after the time we reached him, and at this
Yeah, that
point,
makes sense.
everybody was so sick of this place, and we just wanted to see something different. So oftentimes, we just stop at the Emperors or Huhuran, and then just hit up Nexramus.
Instead of B for backpack, just put B to open all the damn bags.
The run back for him was the worst yet, and so was the trash between him and the Emperors. It was like we spent an hour to clear that trash just so we could start wiping on Cthulhu. Another thing with him was that you had to be very specific with how you aggroed him. I still don't fully understand it to this day, but you had to split up into 2 even groups at this doorway, and you let the tank go first. If the groups ran in too quick, he'd do a chain lightning and one-shot the entire raid. So there were times where we'd run back for 30 minutes, buff, go over the strategy, and then die in 2 seconds flat because someone ran up too quick.
It's a little annoying.
So it was either that for a night, or something new with Nexramus. So I don't really blame us for never getting him. He can keep his damn loot, we don't want it. So, AQ40. Insanely tough, insanely time consuming, fun at times, but also very frustrating at the same time. It did also have some optional bosses. We were just trying to survive in that place, so we didn't really delve into those too much. But we did kill the 3 bugs after the first boss. They were pretty easy compared to the other 2, which was Vicidus and Luro, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. As for AQ20, we did do this a few times. Definitely not as much as ZG, simply because it didn't seem appealing to do a giant bug raid for 3 hours, after doing a giant bug raid for 5 hours. We did find entertainment outside the raid though.
I'm gonna have to stop hitting that. They don't have anything I want anyway.
Target locked.
Oh. Am I dead yet? I'm being attacked. Am I dead yet? No? Damn it. This guild chat is bugging out hardcore. They shouldn't have even incorporated that, to be honest with you. The way it is, it's just so dumb. Like if it just told you what they were doing all the time, that would be cool. And that would actually be a great way to show off your, bots. But this, no. It kind of reminds me of that Sword Art Online Vita game where they made fake players and they would always just say generic things. And then they were just kind of boring. That's what that reminds me of. Any whore.
For the Alliance. Can I help you? Have a good one.
Okay, so where is this at now? I might be better off just flying over there. Well, yeah.
What can I do for you? See you soon.
Let's switch back to soda here. Oh, babe. Big yawn. You know, getting in my face. I got those lotions. Yes. All right, I'm gonna put some Witcher music back on here. Oh, I'm doing the moonwalk. Oh, I need to buy and repair here, or sell and repair.
I buy and trade.
It has no sell price.
The Alliance.
I keep doing that. You see, the problem with Witcher soundtrack is when you think of the Witcher soundtrack, you think of the songs that play when you're just kind of traveling around, and those are really good. You don't think of the ones that play when you're fighting, because you're too busy fighting. You're not really listening to the song. And then, so when you listen to the Witcher soundtrack, like just a soundtrack, you're like, what the fuck are all these songs? I don't remember these songs. At least that's the position I'm in right now. How about just some WoW music? Bye. Oh, you son of a bitch. You know what? We're going at it. Just me and you, buddy. The throw? Yes. I'll fight you for it. Always down for some mithril. Some meth roll. Bye. Wasn't that some shit? I'm getting netted. No? Yes? And you got a long aggro range, mister. Fuck. I think I'm gonna head over here. Just a little bit. We drop aggro. Please. And now I'm gonna head back. It's in the barn, right? Near the barn. It could be there, it could be over here. That's what near means in Warcraft quest lingo. Yeah.
You want to throw one of them?
No, I work tomorrow.
Okay. Well, you never tell me, so I have to ask. You going in at 3?
Yeah.
Do I know if I have to be quiet when I get grumpy? McGrumperton? Hey, where you going? Ducking in the cage, sorry.
I spend my whole life repeating myself. Maybe not my whole life, but it's no exaggeration, but pretty much every day of my current life is spent repeating myself. Near the barn, is that it? Yep. Wonderful. What level is this horde over here? Shit. He'll see me if I go over there. You know what I should do? I should make the bot sight range longer. Oh, no, we see each other. Now's my chance. Got me. Fuck. No, I couldn't do that. Shit. You know what? I'm gonna switch to mana here. I have a potion. Just enough to fuck me. Let me make a change to the bots real quick. I probably shouldn't make this change. This is probably suicidal. But I think it'll be fun. And who doesn't like watching me get ganked constantly? $100. Okay. So I think it's sight. Yes. Sight distance would also be 100. And the grind distance should also be 100. And I'm going to go ahead and make this change across all my servers. Because if I can see 100, then they should be able to see 100. And again, I will regret this. But it's fine. And this change will take effect the next time I restart the server. So for right now, it's going to stay the same. Do I have any guildmates in the Lands by chance? I do. I'm gonna stop summoning guildmates just to do that. It's kind of bullshit. I'll just invite ones that are in the same zone as I am. I have like what, 700? Yeah, 700 guild members. I shouldn't have a problem. Getting some that are nearby. Oh shit, hold on. Gonna heal me, bro? Rocket. They were smart, they wouldn't have died. Alright, stay there for now. Oh, they're mana draining me. This is a yellow quest, so I should be able to do it, right? Can I share this quest? Oh, eligibilities. It's because quest chain, I guess. I don't remember who the fourth guy was. I should have did that before I made them all leave. You just gonna keep following me? Okay, whatever. You guys don't look too scary. He does though. Fuck mages. Let me go somewhere where I can die and res relatively safely. Let me check these bot settings here again, because they've added some, and I wonder if they added anything that changed where the bots teleport to. I'm pretty sure they have. Should be down towards the bottom. That I can change. Ooh, I could get rid of PvP prohibited zones and then just have Gadgetzan and Booty Bay and all that be a bloodbath. Yeah, the only teleport option I see on here is for level differences between the bots and nearby creatures. Which apparently doesn't work because I got a skull next to creatures that are the same level as me, so. Perhaps they should fix that.
and build a checklist on how to figure out what they want to do.
Yep.
What class will I play? What
Warrior.
server? What server type? How many
PvP.
diapers do I need to buy?
Shit
In
my
this video,
pants.
I wanted to make a guide of sorts and build a checklist on how to prepare for the launch of Classic World of Warcraft,
Okay.
and also just give you some tips in general. So let's get the obvious stuff out of the way first, starting with the class. While I won't go into each class one by one, the main thing I'll say is that the classes in Classic are very niche. It's not like the current game, where if you have a tank spec, you're just as capable as tanking as everyone else. For example, Paladins, Druids, and even Shamans are capable of tanking, but
I love how shamans can tank in vanilla. Wow, I think they should make that in the game nowadays. See, look at this right here. This is the actual tank. This is, you know, the shamans had enough time. Paladins had his little fun. Druid off-tanked one mob. Feels like he's a god. Now this big dick motherfucker comes in, shows him how it's done.
Warriors are seen as, quote, the best tanks in Classic, and as a result, most serious raiding guilds will focus their recruiting on warriors.
You're goddamn right.
For healers, priests are seen
goddamn
as
right.
the, quote, best, and as for DPS, Retribution Paladins will have trouble keeping up. It's the early days of MMOs where all of this stuff is still being worked out. Fierce. For healers, priests are seen as the, quote, best, and as for DPS, Retribution Paladins will have trouble keeping up. And as for DPS, Retribution Paladins...
These guys do a lot of damage.
The early days of MMOs. And as for DPS, Retribution Paladins will have trouble keeping up. It's the early days of MMOs where all of this stuff is still...
Look, dude, I mean, you can still heal, man. But you can heal?
I don't want to heal. I don't want to. I want to do damage. I do big dick damage in retail right now. I do more DPS than most people. I want to do big dick damage on Classic too. I should have the right.
Okay.
I should have the right to do big dick DPS in Classic. I should have that right.
That's true. I mean, you pay your $15 a month, and they should allow you to do as much damage as possible. And if they don't do that, they're basically stealing your money. Like that's actually a very good point. I agree with that.
being worked out. There really wasn't a standard, so as a result, the balance is questionable in a lot of places. I am a believer that this time around, due to our increased knowledge and skill, things will be a bit easier, and
I would say
guilds will be more lax.
Everybody would say so.
I mean, people 5-manned Onyxia back in 2005, and that was pre-AQ40, so I'm pretty sure you can afford to have a Retribution Paladin or two in the raid.
Yeah.
But still, in
I
regards
guess
to
so.
raiding, class balance, or the lack thereof, is definitely something to consider.
Okay.
You can still find a guild that has a DPS druid. It's just going to be harder than
Just
say,
a bad
compared
guild.
to a combat rogue. So you got to stay realistic as well. As you can see here, I've listed each class and their viability as I remember it. This is a super fast and loose description, and it really doesn't do the classes justice. In my opinion, one of the cool things with Classic is that these classes bring more than just raw DPS, heals, or mitigation to the table. They have their own and completely unique tools and buffs that still makes them valuable to any raiding guild. For example, Druid's big heal rate, which is crucial, and also they're the only ones who have battle res back then.
I think that's a
pretty
good
much
point.
every class has
Each class is niche. That's one thing that Classic WoW has that BFA doesn't really have. It feels like every class kind of brings everything. The only real things, like what classes really bring something special. You have priests that bring mass dispel. You have mistweavers that do revival. I think revival, it's like a raid-wide dispel. Warlocks obviously have summoning, and they also have the gates. Rogues have Shroud of Concealment. Death Grip is borderline. There are very few classes. Enhancement Shaman has totems. Yeah, nobody gives a shit about Enhancement Shamans, man. Sorry to say. But yeah, that's one of the things I really liked about Classic. Go ahead.
Even Blizzard.
They're the last people that care about them. It's sad to say. Go ahead.
Feel so bad for him, man. Dude, Enhancement Shaman used to be like the most exciting gameplay. It used to be amazing.
Yeah, you're right. And then I don't know what happened, but
Just two of each, I can do that.
To them. If you'd like a more in-depth preview and you have an hour to spare, I do have a full class picky guide for you in the description. It's a tough choice for sure, and with how long it takes to level and the level boosts, it's a super important decision as well.
Okay.
And the next question is always what race to choose. Similar story going on here with classes. Again, this is the age before hyper balance.
Yep.
Certain races will 100% have an edge over other races, whether it be for PvE or PvP.
Like whites and blacks,
Right,
you know.
this is before hyperbalance, and now after hyperbalance. This is after hyperbalance here.
When it's redneck, it means that
That's after hyperbalance. We've actually gone down in classes. Now there's actually even now less classes. Where is it? Wait, which one is it? Oh, there it is.
It's another important thing to consider. My go-to example is always weapon specialization.
Yep.
Humans get increased skill to maces and swords.
More threat.
Back when you actually had weapon skill, and this reduced your glancing blow penalty.
I
which
never
were
get
basically
glancing
weaker
blows.
attacks that
It doesn't
resulted from
exist.
hitting enemies that were a higher level than you. It's super important for raiding, and it's one of the most important stats in the game, in fact. As a result, human rogues and warriors have an edge in terms of damage compared.
Oh man, just a minute. I need to take a piss. I just want to look at that guy. That's gonna be me right there. Okay. So I'll let you guys know that that's me on the left there, and that's my alt on the right.
Oh God. I don't even know what the point of watching these fucking videos is, man. He's gonna play Classic 2 months. He's gonna say, alright guys, there's not much to do here. Let's go watch some videos while
Do I need sentinels? No.
Rares on retail. I mean, come on, man. I can't wait to play Classic, dude. Red's gonna be. I'm gonna find a way to make Red work. I just know it's gonna be awesome. I just know it. I can't wait. I really want to play so bad. Hi, chat. I hope some of you are having a good day. Again, most of you, not all of you. And of course, I have to say.
Okay, I'm back. All right, just 1 second. Let me see here.
This is
yeah,
City
so
Hall,
my mom
right?
told me She got tickets for our trip to our honeymoon. Turns out it was the 28th of August. I told that bitch to go by herself. Now she's not talking to me. Help? All right. Better solution. Get her into the game. I got my mom addicted to WoW. Instead of telling me to go to bed before my raid, she'd tell me to join my raid. There it is. That's all it takes.
To other races.
Get her into the game.
And on the PvP side of things, orcs get that passive 25% resistance to stuns, which during Classic is huge in PvP. Things were much more bursty back then, and you could really die in a single stun.
That's
so
true.
This is one of the best racials in the game for PvP. In the description, I'll have a link to every single race and their benefits. And again, if you want a more in-depth coverage, I do have dedicated videos for both the Horde and Alliance, also in the description. And the next choice is the server, which can also be pretty tough. First, you have PvP versus PvP, which is the server on LvL with the video. It's pretty self-explanatory. PvE servers manually frame and engage in PvP with other players in those zones. And for PvP, everyone can attack each other at all times, with the exception of the starting zones. Due to the absence of flying in the game, the world PvP scene as a whole is much more active. You will run into skirmishes,
Yep.
trying to complete quests,
Yep.
or farming a high-level spot, or just
Yep.
traveling to a dungeon or a raid. The Stringlewood Vale zone in particular was always a bloodbath, and the Blackrock Mountain is the stage for many PvP skirmishes.
It's a good time.
What you prefer is entirely up to your playstyle. Some love it, some hate it, and just know that if you're a war mode, it's harder to avoid. Really, it's impossible if you take into consideration no flying. Not just that, but also.
I do feel like, yeah, whenever you didn't have flying, you'd just be riding around and you just fucking see somebody, man. I don't know if I hasn't even played Vanilla. What do you mean? I started playing in Vanilla. I stick to in Vanilla. What do you mean? Like this whole thing, like, I never thought flying was like really like bad for world PvP, but I do think that like
I don't need priests either. What the
It was
fuck?
and it wasn't. Like, I guess, like, flying was kind of, it did lower the amount of world PP that would happen, but I think flying's, like, an overall net positive to the game. I guess that's kind of the way that I would look at it. I just wish that they had flying in, like, a better way than they do now. Show pictures of you playing vanilla? Really? Like, you actually want a picture of me playing vanilla? Okay. Let me see if I can find one. There's one right there. You know who Hanky Panky right there is? That's Mick Lorivi. He was up at his grandma's house on his HP computer, and I was down at my mom's house on my HP computer. And we
Oh shit, there's a word here.
by ourselves. It was fucking beautiful. Beast Slayer in chat? Yeah, there it is right there. Let me see if I have another one. That's another one. That's Zach right there on his Meg. And that's me right there on my phone. I don't know when this was. I think this was actually during BC. But it was a little bit afterwards. There's one right there. There's Zach on the computer. Cameron eating my hot fries. Cody in the back. And myself recording him with my old video.
You fucking whores.
2006.
Alright, I need to get in the town hall here.
There's me right there. Age 16. Playing WoW. The reason we took this picture is because it was the first time our names ever met.
There it is. Okay. This is fine. Kill me. Or not.
Scrolling all the way down. I don't know where all the rest of this are, but that's basically it. Okay. So there, so I said you started to drop the Lich King? No, I never lied. When did I say? Actually, I want to know what this, like, Black Mamba 86. When did I say that I started in Wrath of the Lich King? Like, I'm really kind of confused about this because I don't remember ever saying that. Like, when did I ever say? When did I ever say that I started in Wrath of the Lich King?
What?
Like, what are you talking about?
What was that noise just now? Come on, Bubba's. Come on, Bubba's. Come here. Sorry, I had to get my Roomba going.
I'm just confused here. Okay, well, we'll see if he has anything to say. Maybe Demine is just a troll. I don't know. Hopefully. Well, now he'll probably say that, but, you know, everybody knows what's going on here. Foxslayer, thank you very much for the gifted subs. I appreciate that, man. Thank you, thank you. Show achievements. Listen, dude, I've got everything. Show us your old magic videos. I've got my magic cards right over here, dude. Oh, shit. There it is. I've showed people this a million times on my stream. I stopped after a little bit after Ravnica. But, yeah, here's my cards right here. This is my rare binder. Like, I have a bunch of other binders for other cards, but this is only rares. So only rare cards right here. There it is. You're the best. I know. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, let's go to the rest of these. You got 58 in vanilla, not 60? Nope, I got 60 in vanilla. I did raids, and I did a lot of PvP. I mainly grinded the ladder a lot. I didn't have enough time to get Grand Marshal, and I didn't have enough time to play a lot of the 60 in-game content, which is one of the big reasons why I want to play vanilla, is to finish it and to do all the rest of it. But unfortunately, I never got really the opportunity to do it all back then because, you know, I had to, like, go to my parents' house or go to my dad's house because my parents were divorced, and I could never really meet raid times, unfortunately.
Stuff like cross-realm grouping. The game as a whole today has many workarounds in avoiding PvP, whereas in Classic, your decision is made when you hit the character creation button.
Yep.
Another thing to take into consideration are streamers, which is also a point of contention.
Hey.
Streamers are, of course, a new thing that
I'm
didn't
gonna
exist
ruin
in
this
the original
game.
run, and they're problematic to some
I'm
players,
gonna ruin the whole
a
game.
benefit to others, and to some insignificant. Again, it's another preference sort of thing, and every streamer has
There
a
it
different
is,
community.
dude.
Some will have a negative impact on the game, and others a positive one. For example, a negative that some people see are the rabid communities that follow them.
That's you
and
guys.
A positive aspect are some of the events that they put on, such as the dueling tournaments.
Hey, how about
Personally,
that?
these days, I'm more in favor
How
of
about
streamers
that?
because I like the events, but I'm also a streamer myself, so I
Okay.
guess not the most objective person to ask.
Big true.
There do exist videos on some of the reasons why people avoid streamer servers,
Yep.
which you may find handy. I think this
Yep.
one by Classic Wins covers most of it pretty well, and you
Made
can find
sense.
that in the description. There also exists a website called avoidstreamers.com that you may also find handy. Here you can find a full list of all of the bigger streamers and what impact.
Why is Forzen very high? Why is Lyric very high? Like, Mizkif is high? Oh my god. Very, very high.
That they have on the game, so do what you will with all of that. So, you got your
Okay.
race, your class, and
Okay.
server picked.
Yep.
Now what? Well, now you need a name, of course. And if you're
X-Killa.
like me, this is something you can spend hours on in the character creation screen, so it's best to think of that now. Start
That's
making a list of your top names in order so you can get in there right away when the game launches.
Yep.
And this depends on when you're watching this video, but you can reserve your name 2 weeks prior to the launch. Do note though that you have to be subscribed, which may or may not be worth it to you.
Blizzard
Appearance
just
can
get that
also
little
be
bit of
fun.
extra money out of
Luckily
you.
though, there do exist many websites out there that emulate the character creation options for Classic.
Yep.
A popular one is Wowhead.
Mhm.
So that might be something that you want to mess with before release, especially if you want
I'm
to
gonna make my guy the exact same as he used to
waiting
be.
that first day for those name reservations.
He's gonna be
I'll
the
have that
exact
linked in
same.
the description. And another tough decision.
Well, they just don't see me.
Yep.
It's pretty advantageous, I feel, to level your professions as you're leveling your character in the game.
I'm not gonna do
especially
that.
if you're gathering, so you should start thinking.
I never did that. I just would level all the way to 60. I never cared about professions at all. I could buy the stuff later on.
Perfect.
All I cared about was leveling. That's all. That's all the way I've always been.
About that now. For the launch of the game, I really like Skin because it's quick, easy, and it provides a generous amount of silver from your spend rate, crucial at the very
Skinning
beginning.
is really good for
When
making
games
money.
first kick off, the economy will be growing still. You'll make the majority of your gold from these vendors and the options. People can't spend any gold if they don't have it yet, so I'll be grabbing skinning myself and get some extra money.
Yeah, I'm getting out of here.
And then switch to my normal profession. And also, make sure that you don't neglect your secondary professions that everyone can train, and that's cooking, fishing, and first aid. As for what professions though, it's another tough decision. Just like with the races and classes, the professions are much more substantial in the game. One in
I don't need
particular
paladins,
has
do
a
I?
Tremendous edge over the others.
Engineering
No.
is the only profession that
You
matters.
have a variety of bombs and gadgets.
It's the
that are
only
super
one that
useful
matters,
for both
period.
PvE and PvP, and it's quote best because of that.
Yes, it is.
The other
It
ones,
is
for
the
the
best.
most part, don't really have an effect on combat.
Nope.
They're just preference
Not
and
really.
synergy. For example, herbalism synergizes pretty well with rogues because it can gather Fade Leaf, which is needed for their blinding powder, and Swift Thistle, which they need for their Thistle Tea. You'll save a lot of gold if you're an herbalist rogue.
Yeah.
Again, I did also cover this very thoroughly. Not to just turn this video into a plug for my other videos, but it's such a...
You go blacksmithing, engineering if you're a warrior, period. Anybody that does anything different's an idiot. You can go enchanting, though, because that way you can disenchant gear that you farm. Anything besides that, engineering and blacksmithing or engineering and enchanting, that's it. If you go leatherworking, you're an idiot. If you go mining, you're an idiot. There's no reason to deal with mining. You just buy the stuff. But here's the thing, right? Is you go in there, you're making so much money because you're just doing raids all the time. You're just fucking farming shit. You don't need to worry about fucking mining, dude. What do you mean? That's for clowns, man. Peons are miners. You're a fucking tank. You are the main tank for your guild. Get your guild to pay you money for simply existing.
broad subject, and if
Okay.
we're
Oh, fuck you.
That's all there
we'd
is
be
to
here
it.
for an hour. So again, if you want more detail with that, I'll have another video for you in the description. Add-ons are another thing that you should sort out. Classic, no quest markers nor dungeon maps, and many of the other modern conveniences that the current game offers you. While I personally like it that way, and will be
I do too.
foregoing that stuff,
It's
you
a
may
better
find
game.
the game to be
That's what
annoying
matters.
without it. So
It's a
check
better
out your favorite
game.
add-on site, mine is CurseForge, and go through the add-ons and pick out the ones that you like,
Yep.
and get those installed first thing. A popular one is Questy, which handles all of the questing waypoints, just like in the current game, so a lot of people like that one in particular. And expanding further on that, you can also mess with your system settings before the servers are up. There's a button off to the right, so set up your graphics and whatnot, and definitely go through that as well. And since we touched on it a bit, there are some things that you should keep in mind with a new server, especially if you're new to Classic. In Vanilla, you'll find that you need to train all of your abilities. You can only get them from class trainers, who can be found in the major cities and low-level questing hubs. And a big mistake that people will make is that they'll train everything. Depending on your
I'm not gonna
professions,
train
you'll find that
Thunderclap.
early
I don't
on
wanna use
you'll
it.
be
I don't
barely
like it.
scraping along with gold, so it's wise to look at each skill and only train the best ones. For example, maybe you can forgo some of the hunter tracking in exchange for a new serpent sting.
I'm still planning. A lot of people have been wondering about this. I am still planning on holding true to my my agreement to not accept trades from anyone until I actually finish getting my epic mount. Now, once I get my epic mount, I want to make sure this is clear. Once I get my epic mount, I'm going to be accepting trades like a motherfucker, dude. I'm going to be taking as much money as I possibly can. I'm not going to care about anything else. I'm just going to be begging for money constantly, begging for profession items, begging for consumables, never buying consumables. I need to repair. I beg for money in Stormwind. I take off my clothes and I put them in my my full inventory, so I have to throw things away instead of vendoring them because I'm lazy, and I beg for the gold that I could have gotten from vendoring the items that I throw away. It's gonna be just disgusting, okay? But I won't do any of that until I get my epic mount. Legitimate.
Whoa. That changes everything.
Well, yeah, I'm not gonna just sit around and farm a bunch of dumbass fucking bullshit. It's gonna take forever. There's no way I'm gonna do that. Like, I mean, I don't want to have to. Like, it's better for me. I'm just not gonna do it. Fuck that, dude. What makes that any better? Because the rest of it is just upkeep time, and I don't really care about it. But I think the epic mount is really the only. It's like the capstone for like getting things in Classic WoW.
Or negative
Oops,
or
wrong
repetitive
thing.
ability isn't all that crucial to level up right away, since it's just some extra damage. So just something to keep in mind. Super useful for saving it for your mount. So
No, here's the thing, right? Is like I would other people won't wait. Yeah, I would never use consumables for raids if I didn't have to give it to me. I never would do it because it's a waste of my fucking money. We're gonna kill the raid anyway. The reason we're wiping is not because of a fucking consumable. Why would I waste my time with a fucking flask? Think about this. Back in the day, we used to have a, remember whenever your raid leader would do a ready check and then it would announce who has a flask and food buff on? What I did in order to get around that is I would buy elixirs of Lion's Strength. 4 strength. And I'd put them on whenever I was raiding in Burning Crusade. And also in Wrath of the Lich King after that. Just so I could fake the add-on and the add-on wouldn't notice it. I would never spend the money on flasks. I never gave a fuck. And you know what? We never wiped because I didn't do enough DPS. We never did.
Talk about that as well. Get your 60% speed mount at level 40, and your 100%
Man, mages
speed at
are...
level 60, and of course no flying in classic. And you may have
Am I accidentally hitting the Windows key? I wonder if that's what's doing it.
Yep. And it's absolutely true.
Hold on.
Not taking any discounts into consideration between the mount and training.
It is the Windows key.
Farm out that gold.
Total and 100%
forever.
No.
1,000, which is a small fortune in classic. You can get 10% off by reaching Honored with the appropriate faction, and another 10% from reaching rank 3 in PvP, which is quite easy. Unless you're using the auction house, the level 40 training is very tight, usually requiring you to go out of your way to farm some gold, and maybe level up your professions.
I'm just gonna need roll on
For a fresh
everything and vendor
server,
people's
it's a
gear.
bit more tricky because, like I
It's simple.
mentioned, no one really has any
Just
gold
like classic.
to spend at that point. You can pull it off, I'm sure, but it's just gonna take a bit more effort. I always say that fishing is low-key the best profession for gold while leveling. There are low-level fish that are super valuable that at high levels will be too lazy to farm, and it's always worth it if you saw an oily blackmouth school to go fish it up. These are used for free action potions, which is one of the best potions in the game, even at max level.
Yep.
The deviate fish is
They were
used
good
for
even
the
at
savory
80.
deviate delight, which
Then
is
they
one of the
nerfed
few
them.
appearance-altering items back then. Also super valuable. All this is to say, though, if you start saving early and watching your spell training and getting your professions locked down from launch, you'll be in a much better position for affording
You
your
just go
mounts
in there with a
and mount
plan.
training.
That's what matters.
And some more
I agree with
miscellaneous
this.
tips here, if you plan on going hardcore into launch, is to go for the title charm. In the Arabian land zone, located in the waters right here, is the NPC Prince Nazir,
Don't go for that
and
that
he can drop a
trinket. You're gonna
trinket
get
called
banned.
Title Charm, which stuns a target for 3 seconds.
Yep.
Due to the shortage of trinkets in general in Classic, this is insanely good, particularly for PvP, and it's something that's going to be insanely camped even at the max level.
Yep.
So, if you plan on no-lifing it, and you're one of the first to reach...
Okay, good. I did it just right.
Definitely check this out to see if you spawned. And in the same vein, if you're a hunter, you're going to want to tame Broken Tooth. Back in Classic,
he does
before everything was
fast.
homogenized, hunter pets had different
He
attack
does
speeds.
so. It's like a
Spell
1.0
pushback
attack
is
speed.
also insane in Classic.
He's the
so
fastest
for
one there
PvP,
is.
The faster the pet, the better.
Yep.
Broken Tooth is one of 2 pets in the game that have an attack speed of
I think the other one is the Rake.
The other being a bat and is over upgrade,
Really? Okay,
which
wow.
won't unlock until phase 4.
Okay.
So, as soon as you hit
Shit.
level 37, you should check out his spawn
It's a bat.
locations, which can be found right here in the Badlands, and see if you can get lucky, because this will be another thing that
hate mages.
at level 60.
Probably.
But let's step outside of the game for a moment, shall we? Into that scary place called the...
It's a good idea to get mine and get more stamina. Yeah, sure. If you have
Need
a-
to start using my
Pandaria whenever
divine
you
shield.
get into the game. Yeah, it would. So real life tips.
Real world.
Okay.
Burn.
Yeah. So here's what you want to do. Is it Wrath of the Lich King? Oh, I don't even remember. But either way, it wasn't in vanilla WoW. The point is that real world tips. You want to make sure that everybody that loves and cares about you knows that you're going to be ignoring them for at least 1 month. And the only time to ever interact with you is whenever they are bringing you food. That's it. All the other times, all the other stuff, you don't even worry about that. You just purely focus on getting the food. and no one brings me food. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, changing the poop sock. Well, it's like, no, you can usually go and take a shit during flight paths. That's usually what I would do, at least.
Turns. Ah, man. Well, the gameplay sucks.
Yep.
I guess the graphics are alright. Uh-oh. Girls. Never mind. Let's get back inside. I didn't sign up for Mythic mode. Let's regroup and study up on other brave souls who've laid the path before us. What you're watching is archived video footage from the original release of the game, November 23rd, 2004.
Look at him, dude. He's ready to go to work.
This surely has some useful information in it.
He's playing on a laptop with Windows 6.
This is the World of Warcraft at 10:45. We're still installing it.
Oh,
we plan on playing for at least 12 to 13 hours. We're going to document it.
12 to 13 hours?
There it is,
What is this amateur bullcorn?
There it is.
Let's go through the unit. What?
More than 12 to 13 hours.
Good call.
That only put us at 11.
Okay, that's
Oh, look at that.
Getting serious now.
He's
And
ready.
hey, look, they even picked up the collector's edition, so you gotta give them some respect.
Yep.
And of course, they've come prepared.
Could that
Back
be supplies for
Doritos
today's
from 7-Eleven.
special event? Park, show up.
That's great, dude.
Yeah.
Fucking
Now that's what I
Pepsis,
like to
dude.
see. Okay, as far as
Oh,
food is
man.
concerned, your first tip is to get the most unhealthy stuff imaginable.
Yep.
Dr. Pepper,
Yep.
Doritos, Hot Pockets.
Yep.
This is fuel for true gamers.
Yep.
The trick is to deny your body of real food. The combination of constantly being on the brink of death and the non-stop diarrhea will prevent you from sleeping, thus
True.
allowing you more time to get those precious levels.
Very good point.
What level you done?
Very good point.
5. Silk, it's 340. What's your status?
Angry?
Why is that?
The legs. And I keep getting booted. And I can't see my body.
Anger
Some things never change, right? 2004, the game's fucked. 2019, still fucked.
because it keeps getting
Same
bigger.
problems too.
Well, then it's definitely the original release.
Yeah, this is
But
a real
take note,
thing.
No matter how pissed you get, you never stop playing.
That's
Just
right.
pound another chocolate pudding cup and get back in there.
Yep.
And speaking of which, though, let's talk a bit more about your food of choice. We're up to a good start here. Dr. Pepper, love that DP. Doritos,
I love DP too.
chocolate pudding. But your feet
Did I do it right again? Awesome.
At this point.
Yep.
Just to be sure, let's throw in some gummy bears, some nachos, and of course the go-to staple, Taco Bell. Of course, having your mom order and deliver it to you.
Yep.
We don't want any social interaction.
Yep,
do
there
we?
it is.
Diapers are
I
also
knew
going
it.
to be crucial. Just because you have to go to the
I knew
bathroom
it.
a lot doesn't mean you should be away from your computer. However,
That's true.
if you want a more long-term investment to save yourself some cash, you may want to look into something like this.
Oh, I
And as for your entertainment of choice, you have many options. You always have the sweet comfort of twitch.tv/MadSeasonShow to lead you along in your journey.
True.
Having completed my initiation and been participating in the Cat Throwing Olympics, the sport of choice for any Twitch streamer. That's about it.
Holy
Release the
shit.
plastic isn't far now. I hope that you're leaving this video a bit more prepared and you're ready for the world of Warcraft.
Good, dude. I'm fucking ready, man.
Dude,
I'm fucking ready. 20 days.
Farewell for now.
out of all people,
We hope you enjoyed.
I expected to throw
You
shots.
will get
I never expected him, man.
Nah, not even remotely. Oh my god. Legend.
Yep.
Dare.
Holy shit, watch the classic trailer. I've watched that so many fucking times, dude. Like, accommodation of constantly being on the brink of death and constant diarrhea. Funniest description of us vanilla WoW players ever. I prefer class identity over class balance for MMO. True. How many diapers do I have to buy? Let's step out of the game and get into real life. Unsubbed. Do prepare. This is the thing, right? I've been preparing for this for a long time.
And thank you for joining us today for Activision Blizzard's second quarter 2019 conference call. With us are Bobby Kotick, CEO, Cody Johnson, COO, and Dennis Durkin, company CFO and President of Emerging Business. And for Q&A, Rob Kostic, President of Activision, J. Allen Brown,
Oh, that's nice of him to show up.
and Herman Saknini, President of
That's fucking Bobby.
He won't get the last hit on me, though. He's not going to get any honor. Nope.
The forward-looking statements in this presentation are based on information available to the company as of the date of this presentation, and while we believe them to be true, they ultimately may prove to be incorrect. A number of factors could cause the company's actual future results and other future circumstances to differ materially from those expressed in any forward-looking statements. These include the risk factors discussed in our SEC filings, including our 2018 annual report on Form 10-K, and those on the slide that is showing.
Okay.
The company undertakes no obligation to release publicly any revisions to any forward-looking statements to reflect events or circumstances after today.
Oh, I didn't realize the last video ended.
Yep, there it is.
Why is that?
So I need medics and hunters. I don't know where to find either one. Unless they're in the lumber yard, which is possible. Fuck them up. Yeah, I don't see any hunters or medics over there. They're probably over here. Lumberjack. Knight. Lumberjack. Lumberjack. Knight. I can only assume that the rest of them are over here. Except I don't remember how I got through here. Oh, well. I guess it's that easy. Oh, not quite. Not quite that easy. And there's a random horde up there too. This looks familiar. Maybe. No, I'm not making it up there. It must be farther over here, where the gap is. Come on, I should be able to get up here. That's some bullshit. Here we go. And then I go over here. Yep, I know where I am now. Perfect.
I need to get closer.
I don't see any medics over here. Unless they're at that tower that's down here. It's the only other place I can think of. There's spellbinders, but no medics. I'm gonna have to look this up, unfortunately. Oh, I didn't even know there was a camp over there. Fuck. And there's no medics down here. I don't know why it says there is. Fuck. I should be able to get out of here. I should just be able to run in there and tank all of them. Okay, well, they're supposedly over here somewhere. Oh, this is what he meant by the bulwark. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of horde over here, that's for sure. I don't see any medics. Don't you dare. Okay, it says it's over here. What the hell did I just aggro?
It's too far away.
Let me look again. It says they're over here. They're most certainly not. Northeast of the house. Okay, so over here, supposedly. I followed the road. I didn't really go east of here, so yeah, that might be over here. Hiding out. Yep. We got hunters over here. Yes. And who's this guy? We're not in a guild. Let's fuck him up. We're gonna have to try this again, sir. Might just res him. If it'll let me. I know he just released. This is possible. I just need to be more picky about what I pull here.
They can't join our group.
And then a bot comes in here and fucks it all up.
They can't join our group. I'm out of range.
Where's my dude? We're not gonna get credit for any of these. I'm just gonna go tag these ones, I think. Ooh, what's this? Only 3 stamina. Yeah, these aren't for me. I know it's not really like a good shield for me, but it's better than what I had. I still need medics though. Gonna wait for these ones to respawn. Actually, these guys can just leave now. Does he have what I think he has? Why do I have minus 100 strength? I'm confused. Okay, 1 minute left. Yeah, these are both max. Oh, I get the hell out. So what is giving me minus stamina? My character bugged. Oh, this sucks. I probably should be fighting these guys every time I go through, but I think Burning Crusade gives me just enough XP through quests that I don't have to necessarily do that. If this was vanilla, though, I would. For sure, I would. I don't remember where this guy's camp is. I think it's over here somewhere. Oh, I fucked it up. Oh, I'm dead. No. Okay.
Hello. See you around.
Well, let's see. I can't get over there through here. What the hell is hitting me? Yeah, he'll take care of it. I hate being webbed.
He's in the bathroom.
Yeah. Oops. I still don't understand what's giving me minus stamina. Maybe I need the relog. So many fucking spiders over here. Holy shit. And I have to fight them because they just spam web like that. You literally can't get away from them. I really need to figure out what's causing my negative stats. I could just restart the server. Try and get somewhere safe. I'm dead. Yeah, you know, I'm gonna get somewhere safe. I'm gonna restart the server. I'm gonna turn the stream off. I'm gonna take a little break. And I don't know if when I come back I'm gonna still be playing WoW or not, but I'll be playing something. You know, you think dying would have cleansed my issue, but it doesn't. So yeah, let me go right here, .save, restart the server, and I'll be